Mayor, members of the council, good morning. Today we're here to talk about the sales tax. We've been pointing towards this day for over a year in terms of the discussion of the strategic plan. I want to just set the stage once again for you. This is not a plan brought to you in a vacuum, but has been part of a community engagement process that started in early 2013. Using the services of WSU, mailed out a community survey to over 25,000 residents, received more than 4,000 of those back. Also, we went through a pretty exhaustive citizen engagement process called ACT ICT, went to over 100 meetings, touched over 2,000 residents through that process. Additionally, after you indicated a desire to talk about potential sales tax, we went out and talked to a number of other groups, talked to about 500 people, received comment cards from about half of those participants. In addition, we put the same information out on Activate Wichita and received comments from a little over 100 participants. What we found in the survey in ACT ICT is that 4 items rose to the top. There were 4 others that merited consideration and discussion, and we talked to you about those during workshop and in strategic planning discussions. But the 4 that rose to the top were water supply, job creation, pavement management, and transit. When we had the community information meetings testing those items, as you asked us to do with the community, they came back with the following results with high marks for all 4 of the initiatives that were brought forward. I'm sorry, this slide has the wrong table in it. What's in front of you today is a 5-year sales tax that would generate almost $400 million. 200, as proposed, $250 million of that would go towards job creation, a job creation initiative. $80 million, excuse me, got it turned around. $250 million for water, another water source. $80 million for job creation. $39.8 million for Wichita transit operations, and $27.8 million for street maintenance and repairs. Let me talk very briefly about the items that you have here in front of you, repeat or summarizing information that you've received through numerous meetings. Regarding the water supply, the goal is to have drought protection for a significant drought, what we call a Dust Bowl drought, through the end of that drought period, and to do that through the planning period, which is 2060. In order to accomplish that, 2 things need to happen. We need to get additional 10 million gallons of water a day into our system, and we also need to have water conservation by our residents and our businesses. The preferred method, the recommended method, is through enhancements of the aquifer storage and recovery system, drilling additional wells, constructing a side stream storage reservoir, and allowing us to better utilize the existing assets that we have at ASR. I just bring this back to you because I think many of you felt this was a good depiction of what the ASR system it has today and what we would be bringing forward as recommended. The ability to pump another 30 million gallons a day out of the Little Ark during high water times, to be able to store that and then treat that through the ASR system. As recommended, we would have the additional well field improvements, additional wells in the well field, and then we would construct a new pipeline to take water down to the main water treatment plant, which would allow us to increase the capacity coming from ASR to the water treatment plant, but also provide us with redundancy in case we were to have a failure of the existing line. The next 2 slides simply remind you of what I call the deliberative process that we went through in analyzing all of the options, but specifically looking at the ASR option. We had a series of outside engineers that participated in this process, as well as hydrologists. The cost right now are estimated about $200 million. However, the caution is that we're only at the 1% design rate, and so we are staying with a $250 million maximum cost. That's what the proposal is today. to allow for additional planning and contingencies going forward. And the breakdown of those expenses are on the screen in front of you. Also, there will be additional operating costs which have been factored into the pro forma for this project, about $2.8 million. To the jobs initiative, 2 reminders as background, 2 slides for reminding you about the background of how or why this is such an important issue to the community. This slide shows 40-year job growth. You'll see in the 1970s very robust growth, dropping down to just a 1% average growth for the last 14 years. The slide shows that we have been slow to come out of the recession, in fact slower than the comparable cities that are listed on this screen. The jobs plan that has been presented to you would emphasize the creation of primary jobs, and any assistance that would come from this fund would only go for the creation of primary jobs. Those are jobs that generate money from outside the local economy or the local region. There would be an emphasis on the wages and benefits that are provided and making sure that certain thresholds are met, as well as making sure that there is a proper return to the city and to the community for any job creation. Also, there'd be strong clawback provisions in all deals that would be funded from the Jobs Fund. The most important part of this, in my mind, is the execution of an authentic and effective diversification plan. We are working with Wichita State and its team of experts in building on the concept that they have proposed for Wichita State, which is the Innovation Campus, finding ways to better utilize the skill sets of the folks that are here in this community, the workers in this community, and finding other industries where those skills can be applied. It is important to remember that over the last 10 years, 90% of the funds that have come from our current efforts have gone to existing businesses, and it's envisioned that we would see some type of similar distribution of funds. The idea is to grow this existing economy as much as possible, not necessarily hope for the home runs from bringing companies into the region. The decision-making is going to look different than it does today in terms of economic development decisions. The first difference will be the creation of a jobs commission with 3 private sector representatives and 2 public sector representatives. The criteria listed under number 3 here on the screen, those are the types of, that's the background that will be preferred for the participants in the committee so that they are knowledgeable and they understand the business climate and business practices in this community, and that they can bring that expertise to bear on the decisions made for the job creation projects. In addition to that, there'll be a Citizens Oversight Committee, which I'll talk about in a few minutes, that will watch how all the sales tax dollars would be spent. Of course, you'll be in an oversight role, and you'll get reports from the Oversight Committee on a regular basis. And then the recommendation is that there be an audit performed every year on how the jobs funds are expended and to determine the effectiveness of those investments. The other different portion of all of this is the use of a more robust analysis process using 3 models, at least 3 models, maybe even more data will be required by the committee or the commission as it goes forward. Today we currently use the fiscal impact model, and that's what you use to analyze decisions, and you focus on at least a 1.3 return on our investment. There are 2 other models that are being suggested for inclusion in the decision-making process. One is a new model that's being developed by Wichita State that looks at the financial impact of layoffs and the unemployed in the community and the benefit of putting people back to work in terms of reducing public cost and improving purchasing power. And so that data would be available for the committee as they go forward. And then there's also a national model, the REMI model, that looks at other factors, including wage rates throughout the region and also job availability, or the labor pool, in the region. It allows for a much more robust decision-making process and I would say one that would present you with a lot more information as you look at the impact of new jobs in the economy. The goal is to get 20,000 new jobs financed over this 5-year period of time. I think the rest of this just summarizes what I've already said about the Jobs Fund. A significant return on investment to the city and the community, and having strong measures in terms of decision-making and determining success from the use of those funds. Pavement management, excuse me, that goes without saying, so. The whole idea in the 5-year program is to address the streets in the poorest condition in our residential areas, something I know all of you have heard about on a regular basis. We have changed our model. We are making, I think, sounder investments in our current street system, but we still have to address the streets in the poorest condition. And so over the next 5 years, we would attempt to use about $28 million to pave or reconstruct about 111 miles of pavement in residential areas. This breakdown shows you by district what our existing program and the sales tax program combined would do in terms of total expenditures and total lane miles treated. Excuse me, happy finger. This shows you what our performance has been from 2010 through 2014 and what we would do over the next 5 years. And you can see much more robust street maintenance program as a result of the influx of dollars from the sales tax. Public transit, you know that we serve or provide over 2 million rides a year. The system is operating in a deficit position. There's a structural deficit that needs to be addressed by 2016, or else there'll be significant reductions in service, estimated to be about 25% reduction in service. The sales tax is proposed to provide almost $40 million. This slide shows how that money would be spent. The first two initiatives would be to put the system on solid ground, to make it more sustainable, and then after that we would talk about bus replacements and service improvements. Steve Spade at the last meeting went in more detail on the planned service improvements that would be phased in over the 5-year period, but this is a summary of those and what the estimated cost would be. You asked for measures for all 4 of these items. Here are the measures to determine success with transit at the end of the 5-year period: reducing the age of our fleet, improving our ridership numbers, including the revenue that we get from the fare box, and increasing our passengers per hour. Finally, just to come back to the issue of the Oversight Committee, the idea is that following this example that was established with the Intrust Bank Arena project, we'd have a citizen oversight committee that would meet on a quarterly basis, track expenditures through the entire 5-year period to ensure that this money is being spent in a manner consistent with the ballot language. It is my recommendation that that committee consist of representatives throughout the community, that you appoint possibly 7 to 10 people on that committee representing your districts as well as at large, that they receive full reports, as I said, on a quarterly basis, and then report those back to the community and to you. So in front of you today is a discussion. As you requested, we have 2 options in front of you in terms of what could go on a sales tax ballot, and the actual issue is whether or not you'll approve an ordinance to place the special question election on first reading and to move forward towards a November election. With that, I'd be glad to answer any questions regarding the items that have been presented.